Welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. We have been interviewing school board candidates. So I'm going to back up and say this is put on by the Washington County Democrats. And we really urge people to study the candidates, go vote, know who you're voting for. School boards are really, really important. So Crystal Weston is running for school board in Tigard. Crystal, would you talk a little bit about what motivated you to do this?
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate being able to come here today and speak to voters. So education's been really important to me in my life. I am from a hardworking family, and I had a lot of opportunities from education. I went to college on a full academic scholarship, and I found that it really opened a lot of doors for me. And now I have three kids attending public schools in the Tigard Tualatin School District, one at each level: high school, middle school, elementary school. And I really want to safeguard those opportunities that I had and make sure that young people in our community have those same opportunities to be able to open doors and have a bright future.
So you're a returning school board person. You just served, right? Okay. So kind of a double question. What skills and experience and background do you feel you bring to this position? And also tell us some things that you did during your last term that you were especially proud of.
Yeah, thank you. It's difficult to speak about accomplishments right now because there's a lot of things I'd like to see in our district and resources are scarce. And so I feel like maybe a few things I've done is maybe blunt the impact of some of the cuts by trying to prioritize classroom facing resources. I've tried to build strong relationships with our teachers and our union partners, and I've contributed to shepherding through some of the transitions with our administration. But there's a lot of things that are very difficult right now in our school systems. And so right now I'm just trying my best to keep what we can in our district and prioritize things that are important to me and important to my constituents.
And that leads perfectly to the next question. The Tiger District's facing about a $10 million shortfall, and that's going to make for some hard decisions. It looks like they may be cutting staff positions and some programs. How would you prioritize budget cuts and school cuts? What would you like to avoid cutting? What orders, what order do you think these cuts should go in?
Yeah, thank you. And as only one school board member, there is some back and forth as to how this happens. We also have a lot of input, of course, from experts, from our financial staff, from our superintendent. But generally, for me, I prioritize classroom facing resources. That means teachers, that means classified staff. The reason for that is because I think that young people really benefit from having from having instructional time, and that comes from teachers. I also think it's really important to have positive relationships with supportive adults, and you can't have that without actual people working with our young people. And I think so. Things are really important to me. And then there are also some programs that are particularly impactful. There's things that are required by law. We have a certain amount of units and requirements, and then there's things that just really help people form community and know who they are as people. And so I think those things are really important, things that provide engagement and community.
So where would you, I mean, it's a hard decision. Where would you start making cuts? Where do you think the board should start looking?
Well, this might not be a popular position, but I do think it's okay to have less of a reserve right now. And the reason for that is because it's raining and these are rainy day funds. And I think that this is a uniquely impacted generation because of the pandemic shutdowns. And this entire generation has been impacted by that time. Some students were not engaged in learning during the pandemic. And so this is an entirely, this this generation of young people has borne that burden in particular, and I think it makes sense to try as much as we can to make them whole, and I don't think we've done that. And so I think it is acceptable to dip into our reserves right now. That doesn't mean we can do it indefinitely, because the state may never come through with a fully funded educational system, which is really sad and speaks to our priorities as a state. But I think using up some of that reserve would be acceptable. And then I think if there are excess, and I don't think anyone's really excess, that's not really the word to use, but I think some administration positions would be better to cut than classroom facing positions. And that doesn't mean I don't want those positions, but I think that those in the classroom teaching kids would be a little bit higher priority for me. And then considering programming, I think we do have to use forecasting to some degree to determine if we have to cut certain electives. But on the other hand, I think there are some electives that are particularly valued by the community, that are winning awards, or that are really providing strong communities for some of our young people. And so I think there should be some consideration to what we're cutting from that perspective as well.
That kind of leads, I'm going to jump a question and kind of go back to that a little bit. So this, I think you mentioned the support staff, the counselors and the social workers, and the paraprofessionals in the classrooms, the behavior people, the people doing attendance, all those people. So you're saying that those are going to be people that are important to you to preserve.
Yes, we have an ongoing mental health crisis. I don't know when it will end or when we'll have enough resources or prioritize things at work, but it doesn't seem to be showing signs of abating. I think families are under incredible pressure right now. And as a community, we should be rallying around families and young people with those supports, and also with positive activities that provide good things for people to do, to feel successful, to feel community. And so I think those are really important too. But we need a lot of those supports right now.
So that leads into the other question about supporting arts and CTE and athletics programs. So I'm guessing that's part of what you referred to before, supporting those programs that are positive for kids. Those are often some of the first ones that get chopped. Do you feel that those are more expendable than others, or how do you feel about those?
I don't feel great about any of it. I think that, you have to have language arts, you have to have math, you have to have science. But some of these other programs, art, sports, career and technical education, also opens doors for long-term careers. And these are really positive experiences, things where people find community, things where they form identities as an athlete, as a thespian, as an artist. And these things are really important too. And our young people are in class. We have classes, so I don't feel that there's a need to cut all of these things. We do have classes that are going to need to be filled up, and we're not an extremely small district with tiny student bodies where we can only have like literally English, math, and science. So we have the ability to have some of these electives, and so we just need to prioritize very carefully. There are difficult trade-offs and decisions to be made, but I think we can preserve the heart of the community with some of these electives they're really delivering a lot. And then the other thing that concerns me is that if we don't support these things that really bring families to appreciate our schools, then I feel like that's also short-sighted.
Yeah, I guess I've worked in the schools for several years, and one of the things that those programs do provide is a lot of kids who are not engaged, they become engaged because of those programs. They actually bring the kids to school. So that's one of the things that, I've always looked at, and yet there's always the balancing of your reading, as you said, your reading, your math, and all the other things that go on. So the next kind of question is challenges. I know we talked about the budget and some of the things that challenge might require, but any other challenges the school district's facing besides money?
Money is definitely a big one. We could always use more money. I think, though, that the schools are under enormous pressure right now to deliver and to kind of patch together what is really a bit of a broken society. I think so many families are doing well, and I see a lot of kids really thriving in our schools, in our communities, but too many are being left behind. Too many young people are not engaged. Too many families are struggling to make ends meet and to be able to really do well as a family, as a community. And a lot of our young people, too many of our young people are just not engaged. And it is a struggle to get them engaged and to have everyone do well. And I think that it's also important to focus on our young people that are showing up wanting to learn, and making sure to use resources to support that positive engagement as well.
Next question is kind of getting a little bit to that. One of the things that's been really controversial is the Trump administration trying to end a lot of the DEI programs, the DEI language. And our governor has said she's going to protect that in our schools and elsewhere in our state. But we have been seeing creeping across the country that there's been a lot of retribution. If and the school board, your page has a lot of reference to minority participation, to equity, diversity, all these supportive statements. If the federal government does threaten funding from the school district, unless this is removed, what would your response be?
I think that these demands were framed to create an impossible trade-off because the funding in particular benefits marginalized students, low income students, students who rely on free lunches and reading assistance, for example. And so the funding, so these demands were framed to create divisions within those of us that care about all of our diverse students. And so that's a really unfortunate tactic. But at the same time, I think that um, it's 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 an impossible demand and it doesn't make sense. And so I think that the governor and other leaders have been right to resist that. And I don't say that in a flippant way because these funds are critical and we do rely on them. And it would be a huge hole that I don't think we could really fill very well. We would do our best, but I think it would be a bit catastrophic given the frame of society and supports for our families right now. I think it would be a very large problem. But at the same time, I don't think we could comply, and I think we would face increasing demands until we couldn't comply. And so there have been legal actions that have halted the discontinuation of these funds. And so I appreciate all of that work and all of those that have struggled trying to figure out what the best course of action is in these difficult times. I think it was framed as a lose-lose, and fortunately, we've had leaders that have stood up and also taken action to prevent losing those funds, which I feel are incredibly important funds and that we really do need those federal funds.
And related to that, another thing that the Department of Education is trying to push are the vouchers. And the because they're dismantling the Department of Education, they're leaving a lot of things up to the state. So they want to give kids like $10,000 in vouchers. How would this impact the Tigard School District? Because attendance is already, enrollment and attendance is already a struggle. How would this affect your school district?
I think that the state of Oregon has control here at the end of the day. If, as a state, we want to stand up and fully fund public education, then we can be the heart of the community. We can have our families rally around our schools and we can be strong together. If we fail to fully fund education, if we fall short, families will be looking out for their own kids and some of them will choose to take vouchers and go elsewhere. And that will be a loss for our community, for our school system, and for our state as a whole. And so I think we need to do our best as a state and head off these threats to public education by striving for excellence ourselves, which is something that is in our control and is important for us to deliver.
So the whole comment about the vouchers, getting kids out of the school, and then the schools are funded by partially how many kids are there. You're kind of in a sort of like a situation where you have to break that cycle. How and it depends on, as you said, keeping the public schools, keeping a lot of quality in the public schools. So how would you meet that challenge of really making the Tigard School District known as a quality school district? So kids don't say, there's a private school 2 miles away, 3 miles away. I'm sending my kid there. It's better education.
I mean, that's the question, isn't it? But I think we do have some really fantastic educators in our district. And I think uplifting their work and supporting their work and making sure they feel supported and valued and maintaining those important programs that are kind of anchor points for our schools and for our communities and for our young people is important because that will um, help maintain what we have and build upon it as well. But I think we really need to identify things that are important to our families and make sure to come through. And I think that that we can have excellence and serve all of our diverse young people because at the end of the day, all of our families want a quality, dynamic education for their young people that opens doors and provides those opportunities.
Well, thank you, Crystal. I'll give you one last opportunity if you'd like to just make a closing statement and anything that we didn't address that you would like to address.
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss important issues in our district, and I appreciate everyone's support for public education and everyone's engagement, because I think our community is a lot stronger when people are engaged, and our community really cares about its children. And so I think that's a really important thing about our district. So thank you.
Thank you. We've been talking to Crystal Watson, who's running for school board for Tigard School District. Thank you for watching Community Conversations. And please remember to go vote. This is a really important election. Thank you.
Thank you so much.